Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, recently there has been a lot of changes that have come into the game in the form of people upping the level of play with mid slots. And a lot of players have noticed that mid slots can really improve your actual gameplay. Now, I am going to be going through several of the mid slots that are available that can really enhance your gameplay, and I'm going to be going over the pros and cons of using them in your particular builds. Now, let's first go down through the list of your mid slots. If you look at your mid slots, drones are constant on most large vessels. The smaller vessels don't really run drones. Electronic warfare can play a massive role in combat. If you are going to try and outrun a ship, electronic warfare can really play a big part because you can scramble them while they're using a micro warp drive. This is going to drop them from thousands of meters per second to hundreds and give them some time to accelerate. And if you keep doing this, you can accelerate your damage on them because you'll do a massive burst of damage followed by their regular reduction, followed by a burst, followed by reduction every time they try to close in on you. Now, there is one way to use the electronic warfare, however, it's not the best from all the functions. Then you have Energy Nosferatu. Now, the Energy Nosferatu or Nosferatus, in the sense of all of them put together, is one of the best slots to actually use. This slot allows you to drain your enemy's power and actually use it for your own stability. Now, the advantage of this is obviously that you are taking your enemy's power. The negative to this is that you have engaged in extreme close range combat and you are subject to being outgunned or outpaced by a fleet. Now, moving on from these, you're going to see that there's the energy neutralizer. The energy neutralizer really has the same type of benefit as the Nosferatu. The only difference is you don't make a gain. The gain is all one way. You're using the neutralizer to knock off the power from another person's ship. And if you knock off the power from the ship fast enough, you can knock your enemy out of power and really do damage very quickly. It is one of the easiest ways to beat a shield tank or an armor tank in that case. Because you knock out the power, things like hardeners will generally fail and it's going to allow them to take much larger chunks of damage. Okay. Now, moving down from this, you get the shield field modules. Shield field modules are only for guardians, and armor link modules are only for guardians, so I'm not going to go through them. On those particular ships, they play only one role, and that is to extend the durability of a fleet. Right now, we get into the really big ones. Now, I have explained that your upper level, your general electronic warfare, has a lot of advantages and disadvantages like the web of fire, the scrambler, the disruptor. The disruptor can just stop the player from warping off. So once a battle starts, say for example you're fighting a Dramiel, the Dramiel is 2 hits away from dead. They can warp off because they have that speed. If you engage the warp disruptor, they now have to break a massive distance away from you, and by the time they actually break that distance, they're going to be dead. That is one of the changes in your mid slots that you can always run. It does affect the fight in a massive way. Now, going on below this point, you will find that there's the tracking disruptor, the sensor disruptor, and the guidance disruptor. They affect the efficiency and the locking capability of your weapons. They reduce your ability to lock onto a target, and it does affect your overall damage output. So the whole idea behind them is to reduce your range drastically. So a tracking disruptor will reduce the range on your long range weapons. A guidance disruptor will take off that distance that you can put on with a missile bearing ship, and you have to come in closer. The sensor dampener sorry, will make it take longer for you to actually fight another vessel. Now, moving on below this here, we have remote capacitor transmitters. Now, these particular modules work well with logistic ships, and this is where everything starts to change. When you go to a logistic ship, this particular module can change the entire flow of battle. If you have a ship that is fully powered with maximum power, it's going to make a big difference in the fight. This ship can now sustain a longer period of battle. It can do a lot more in terms of fighting other players. If it is on a logistics vessel and the logistics vessel is run in the correct manner, you can have an infinite amount of power on your Guardian. Your Guardian can have infinite shield and infinite capacitor. That means it's never going to run down out of its hardness. It's never going to run out of power to activate, I'm forgetting this module, the basic damage controller or the all-round damage controller. But whichever unit you are placing in the ship, if you do have maximum capacitor, it helps you overall in battle. Now, moving on from this particular role, capacitor, as I said, that's where it helps you. The negative to running this particular slot is it can only be used on one ship at a time. Now I'm going to go all the way down to large. I'm going to open it and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. If you look at the power grid requirement, it's 453 megawatts. Activation cost is 990 gigajoules and energy transfer amount is 329 gigajoules. If you count all of this together, it means that it is actually giving off power at a rather fair rate. It's 1/3 of the power that you lose. So 1/3 of the power that you lose is going to your other ship, and it does not really affect you that heavily. But let's continue on to the next one. Right. So remember that figure. The figure for this year at maximum is 329 gigajoules. Now next we have the group shield booster. Now the group shield booster can be used in any level, and I'm just going to go straight to large. Now the simple reason why I'm going to go to large is, number one, it doesn't have any fall off in terms of power requirement. They all require 1 megawatt, and if you look at the shield booster amount, it's 393. The only cost which is heavy is the fuel consumption at 800 gigajoules. That's around 5 pieces of plasmoids per activation, and that's an activation once every 20 seconds. So every 20 seconds 393 extra shield is going to be repaired, and this isn't just yourself, it's everybody within your squad, within your fleet. Your fleet isn't affected by it, only your squad. Okay, moving down from this, we have the group armor repair. Once more, the exact same thing. It only affects your particular squad. So going all the way down, let's look at the large group. Armor repair 471. Okay, 960 gigajoules. Another one which consumes 5 plasmoids at a time. And as I said, the reason why I'm not worried about the size is they only consume 1 megawatt in the slot. It makes them totally efficient to put onto your ship. And with this here, you now can sustain your armor as well, and it's giving you that extra boost beyond everything else. If you are using this on a medium class ship, that's a battle cruiser or a cruiser, it's really giving you a heavy advantage. It's almost as big as your shield booster is without any advantage added into it. Dropping from that, let's go to the group transmitter. Now this is where everything really comes to play, and I will explain everything all at once as I go through this. Now when you open the group transmitter, you will notice that its energy transfer amount is 307 gigajoules. It consumes 1800 gigajoules of fuel. Right? When you compare that to the remote transmitter, you have to lose 900 gigajoules on your ship. So you can only effectively transfer 5 times, so about 1500 gigajoules to the ship in front of you. When you look at this ship, considering the fact that you are using a module that is group, that means more than one player is taking advantage of it, if you pair it up correctly with the right fleet, you will not run into a problem where you lose power. Considering the figure that's coming in is only 307 gigajoules every 30 seconds, if everybody in the fleet is using this exact same module, let's say fleet in the squad, all 10 players are using it, the whole idea over here is you are getting 3070 gigajoules worth of power. That's a full capacitor. every 30 seconds you recover your capacitor. That's exactly what you want for your fight. You want to outweigh your enemy when it comes to power. The advantage to it is it doesn't touch your capacitor. Your capacitor is also being boosted at the same time, and you now have the advantage of not needing a support vessel in that fleet. This is so effective that it will outweigh a logistics ship. The logistics ship can only last for a small amount of time while transferring capacitor, and that is to sustain the forward ship. If it is also repairing the ship, it won't last as long. So it only has a limited period of action in which it can assist. So if you play with the middle slot being a support module, you don't need to run logistics. This is something that a lot of players have started to discover and they've started to use in groups. And when you use it in a group, you have so much of effective resistance. It's just unbelievable when a player tries to take you on. It makes it feel like you're inside a shield field all the time if you're in a squad of 10 with the full capacitor, the full shield regen, because even if you consider it all at 4000, when you times it by 10, 400, if you times it by 10, it's 4000. 4000 is 1/4 of your shield, and that's every 20 seconds. So every minute you have a full shield again, and that's how effective they become. So all you've got to do is outweigh the central point of your enemy fleet and break their strong point, and you can win. That's why a lot of players have started to adapt this method of using mid-slot group units. Now, here are the cons to it. It is extraordinarily expensive. At 1800 gigajoules for the group transmitter, the capacitor transmitter, sorry, that there is 2 times your previous modules, that is for armor and shield repair. You are using almost 10 plasmoids every time you activate, and this is going to make sure that you really burning into it at a heavy rate. And with that, it's, if you understand, 10 plasmoids every 30 seconds, that means in a minute there's 20 plasmoids gone per vessel. And if you count it at its value of 3000, that's 60,000 ISK every minute. So you really burn through ISK really fast while using this unit. So that is the major downside to it. Obviously 60,000 ISK isn't that massive. That's how come a lot of players would go for it. It's quite an easy way to burn the ISK, 60k a minute. And if you count it for the entire hour, 3,600, 3.6 million. So 3.6 million ISK per hour. That is the cost to run this unit non-stop for an hour, and that's just the one unit. Plus, if you are running this, you're most likely going to run the group shield at the same time, and when you pair the two together, that's going to up your cost by quite a bit, because you're going to be running through 1 2 3 times 5, 15 plus 40, 55 total 55 total plasmoids a minute. And when you think about the cost there, it's going crazy. It's 165,000 ISK a minute, and when you pay it all together, everything in a mass, it just goes crazy, going through the roof, because it's, wait, no, did I get it right? 10 plus 10 is 20. Okay, no, I didn't get it right. It's 35 plasmoids a minute at 3000. That's going to give you 950,000, no, 95,000 ISK a minute. And obviously you multiply it out by 60 to get the hour rating. That's going to pull you up into the early 50s. It's going to give you sorry, I'm working off the top of my head, around 5.7 million an hour. That's the amount of plasmoids you burn on this vessel. So if you had to run it non-stop for an hour, that's about how much you're going to need in terms of plasmoids. If you're going to run it for a long-term fleet, like an hour or 2 hour long operation, it's going to cost you quite heavy figures. I haven't yet worked out the numbers exactly. So let's see, it was 35 to a minute, times it by 60, 35 times 6 is, sorry, I'm getting heavy on this one here. 70, 140. 210. No, 210 every 6 minutes. 2,100 every hour. So for every hour you need about 2,100. That's about 10% of a Naga's cargo hold at 1,150 cubic meters. If you up it for multiple hours, every single hour that you push it up, it's going to go up by 10 point something percent. So if you are running a long-term fleet, like holding off an anchor point, you're going to have to fully fill your hull with plasmoids. That's going to take you near to 20,000 plasmoids to hold out for the entire period. That's what you can hold out for. So around 10 hours, just under 10 hours is where you're going to cut off, and then you're going to have to go and refuel and start going at it again. So obviously it becomes really expensive when you see figures like that there, because it's no longer 6 million, then it's something like 60 million ISK for the period of 10 hours. That's when it becomes a big burn. And those are the things you have to remember. These units can save your entire fleet. They're very expensive as well when it comes to that particular role. If you're using them to support yourself in terms of running missions like Bad Hair Day, True Divine Trial, remember that the cost is comparable to around 60 million an hour, and that is a big hit to your overall profit from the mission. Whew. I hope that you all did enjoy this video on how to run the mid slots, and those are the pros and cons. So basically, you can run your regular electronic warfare. It's going to give you that nice combat advantage in the short-term battle. In the long-term battle, they're going to drain your power as well. They're going to make you fall out of battle faster. They leave you less balanced in terms of power. So you lose power faster the more units you activate on your ship. And when it comes to the group units, you lose your cargo capacity and you gain cargo capacity as you lose fuel, and your loss of fuel is a loss of ISK. It's going to make up the value of a ship really fast, even though you may not notice it. Every 10 hours through the game, it's 60 million ISK for running these modules. So every 10 hours of play with those modules activated is 60 million ISK. So if a person plays 10 hours a day for a full week, the figures become enough to purchase ships. So that is one of the reasons why you don't really want to run these modules too often. You only run them when it's necessary, and you only run them when the profit outweighs the loss. So example, if I am going to do a Bad Hair Day and I purchase it for 180 million, if I count in my 60 million plasmoids for a 10-hour run at it, 10 hours plus the entire cost, that's 180 plus 60, that's 240 million. I'm only making a 30 million profit at the end of the day. I could have done this here much simpler, just invested 3 million and took on a smaller mission. Much better in terms of profit for me. Things like that, they are things that you have to think of when you're doing this. They only are really effective for war mechanics. I hope that you all did enjoy. Thank you all for watching.